The strange case of the Sodder children. The fire that hid a dark secret. Some mysteries are forgotten over time. Others linger, haunting those left behind, refusing to fade. And then, there are stories like this one. A mystery so chilling, so deeply unsettling, that decades later, it still whispers through the cracks of time. It is the story of a family torn apart by fire. A tragedy that should have had clear answers, but instead, left behind only questions. This is the true story of the Sodder children. 5 siblings who vanished in the flames, and the parents who spent the rest of their lives searching for them. A Christmas night of horror. It was Christmas Eve, 1945, in Fayetteville, West Virginia. The Sodder family home stood tall, glowing with the warmth of holiday spirit. George and Jenny Sodder, proud Italian immigrants, had built a life in this quiet town, raising 10 children under their roof. That night, the children were full of excitement, staying up late, exchanging small gifts, laughing. By midnight, Jenny sent them to bed. She checked the doors, dimmed the lights, and listened to the gentle hum of the radio as she climbed upstairs. Outside, the world was silent, cold, still. Then, just an hour later, the nightmare began. The fire that should have taken them all. At 1 a.m., Jenny awoke suddenly. There was no crackling flame, only the harsh sound of the telephone ringing downstairs. She shuffled down to answer. A woman's voice, strange and unfamiliar, asked for someone Jenny didn't know. Laughter echoed in the background. A wrong number. Jenny hung up, unease prickling her skin. Then she noticed something odd. The house wasn't completely dark. The downstairs lights were still on. The curtains open. The front door unlocked. She frowned. The children had always been responsible. Why would they leave things in disarray? Shrugging it off, she turned off the lights, locked the door, and went back to bed. Just 30 minutes later, she awoke again. But this time, it wasn't a phone call. It was the sharp scent of smoke. And when she ran to wake George, the entire house was on fire. The vanishing. The family sprang into chaos. Flames tore through the wooden house, devouring walls, swallowing rooms. Smoke filled their lungs as they stumbled through the burning halls, desperate to escape. George and Jenny, along with 4 of their children, made it outside in time. But 5 children never came out. Maurice, 14, Martha, 12, Louis, 9, Jenny, 8, and Betty, 5. They should have been trapped inside. They should have been burned in the flames. But when the fire finally died, there were no bodies. Not a single trace of bones, teeth, or remains. It was as if they had never been inside at all. And that's when the town began to whisper. Did the fire really take them? Or had something, someone, taken them first? The strange clues left behind. The Sodders were not normal fire victims. In the days and weeks that followed, more questions than answers emerged. 1. No bones were found. Fires destroy flesh, but not bones. Even in the most intense blazes, human remains always leave something behind. Fragments, teeth, ash. Yet in the Sodder house, where 5 children supposedly burned alive, there was nothing. 2. The fire wasn't normal. Experts ruled that the blaze was caused by faulty wiring. But strangely, the house's Christmas lights were still on while the fire burned. If the wiring had failed, how were the lights still working? 3. The ladders were moved. George kept a ladder by the house, his one escape plan in case of an emergency. That night, when he tried to reach the children's rooms, it was gone. Later, it was found hidden in a ditch far from the house. Someone had deliberately moved it. 4. The phone lines were cut. Jenny had used the phone just before the fire. But when she tried again during the blaze, the line was dead. Investigators later confirmed the wires had been cut, not burned. 5. The missing truck. In a desperate attempt to save his children, George tried to move his truck beneath their window to climb up. But that night, despite working fine the day before, both his trucks refused to start. Someone had sabotaged them. Theories of abduction. As the years passed, the Sodders began to believe their children hadn't died at all. They had been stolen. But by who? And why? 1. The Mafia connection. Some believe George's outspoken criticism of Italian dictator Mussolini made him enemies within the Italian Mafia. Had his children been taken as revenge? 2. The child trafficking theory. Others whispered that the fire was a cover-up, that someone had kidnapped the Sodder children and set the house ablaze to erase the evidence. 3. The staged disappearance. What if the children were taken for protection? What if someone knew something terrible was coming and stole them away before the real danger arrived? The haunting clues years later. The Sodders never gave up. For decades, they searched. And then, in 1967, over 20 years later, a mysterious photograph arrived in the mail. A black and white image of a young man. Scrawled on the back. Louis Sodder. I love Brother Frankie. Illo boys. A 90132 or 35. George and Ginny knew. The man in the photo looked just like Louis would have as an adult. They hired a private investigator. He went to track the source of the letter. And then, he vanished. The final whisper. George Sodder died in 1969, never knowing what happened to his children. Ginny wore black for the rest of her life, mourning not just their deaths, but the uncertainty of their fate. To this day, the case remains unsolved. Did 5 children burn in the flames that Christmas night? Or did they walk away from the fire, into something far worse? The answers are out there. But some stories don't want to be found. The silent death of Elisa Lamb, a hotel's darkest secret. Some deaths are straightforward, tragic, but explainable. Others linger, haunting the edges of logic, refusing to fit neatly into any known reality. This is one of those stories. A story of a woman who vanished into thin air. A story of a video that should not exist. A story of a body found where no human should have been able to go. This is the true story of Elisa Lamb, and the haunted hotel that swallowed her whole. The girl who vanished. January 31st, 2013. Elisa Lamb, a 21-year-old college student, was traveling alone, exploring the world outside her home in Canada. She had dreams, ambitions, a love for books and adventure. She checked into the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles, a place with a history soaked in darkness, a place that had housed serial killers, suicides, and whispers of something worse. But she didn't know that. She was just passing through. And then, one night, she disappeared. The elevator video. 2 weeks later, police released a video. A surveillance recording from the hotel elevator. The last known footage of Elisa Lamb. And what it showed shocked the world. Elisa steps inside, presses several buttons. But the doors won't close. She peers outside as if checking for something. Then she ducks back in, pressing herself against the corner, hiding from something unseen. Moments later, she leans out again, moving strangely, her arms twisting unnaturally, her hands twitching, gesturing to something, or someone. She steps out of the elevator entirely. And then, she's gone. The elevator doors close and open again, as if something had been waiting. The video ends. And Elisa Lamb was never seen alive again. The water tank discovery. February 19, 2013. The guests at the Cecil Hotel had been complaining for days. The water pressure was low. The faucets dripped brown. The showers smelled wrong. Maintenance workers climbed to the rooftop to check the 4 massive water tanks. When they opened one, they found Elisa Lamb's body floating inside. Naked. Motionless. Dead. the impossibility of her death. How Elisa ended up inside that tank remains one of the most disturbing mysteries of all time. The rooftop was locked, only accessible by an alarm door or a ladder requiring security access. The water tank was sealed with a heavy metal lid, something far too large for one person to open alone. She was naked, but her clothes were found at the bottom of the tank, as if she had removed them after she was already inside. And most chilling of all, her cause of death was ruled accidental. No wounds. No drugs in her system. No explanation. Just a girl who walked into an elevator and was never seen again. Theories and fear. Elisa's case has no answers. But there are theories. 1. The psychological break theory. Some believe Elisa had a mental health crisis. She was known to struggle with bipolar disorder, and some claim her erratic behavior in the videos suggests a break from reality. Did she climb to the roof herself? Did she somehow slip into the tank in a fugue state? Could the Cecil Hotel's darkness have amplified her condition? But then, how did she close the lid behind her? 2. The murder theory. Many are convinced Elisa wasn't alone, that someone followed her to the rooftop, that they forced her inside, that they sealed the lid shut and walked away, knowing no one would hear her scream. 3. The paranormal theory. And then, there's the one people fear the most. The Cecil Hotel is cursed. A place of death, of ghosts, of evil. Serial killers Richard Ramirez and Jack Unterweger stayed there, killing while they called the hotel home. It was the site of dozens of suicides, people who jumped from its windows, who left behind only whispers. Some say Elisa was possessed, that something entered her mind, twisted her movements, made her speak to something unseen. That the thing that took her away was never human to begin with. The unsolved truth. Elisa Lamb should have been alive today. She should have checked out of the Cecil Hotel, continued her travels, written about her adventures. Instead, her story is one of the most chilling mysteries in modern history. The elevator footage is still analyzed, debated, feared. And the Cecil Hotel? It still stands. Empty now, closed to the public. But those who have been inside say one thing. At night, when the halls are quiet, when the shadows grow long, the elevator still moves on its own. The doors still hesitate. And sometimes, if you listen closely, you can still hear the whispers of a girl calling for help, from somewhere no one can reach. But by then, it's already too late.